here's some statistics. The number 2.2, that's the average number of hours that moms spend doing chores every day. 2.2 hours. Compared to dads, that number's 1.3. Okay, how about this number? 330. The average number of laundry loads done every year. That's 5,300 articles of clothing. And of that, 88% is done by mom. See? How about this number? 7,300. What's that? The number of diapers changed by age 2. I guess that's a lot of diapers. At the same time, most of those are done by mom. However, for dads on average can change a diaper 45 seconds faster than moms can. Which is why we watch NASCAR. Done. See, it's a true thing. Moms, it's a hard job. It's a difficult job. There was a man one time who found a lamp, those little genie lamps on the side of the road, and he rubbed it. Genie comes out and says, I will give you your fondest wish. And the guy said, well, I want a spectacular job, a job that no one else could succeed at, that no other guy has even tried. Poof, you're a mom. See, moms are great builders. In fact, the book of Proverbs, which is this book of wisdom literature in the Old Testament, that's all it is. It's just an entire book, 31 chapters of wisdom. And in that book, the last chapter is devoted to wives and mothers, the entire last chapter. There's some things in there, like, for example, in verse 13 of that 31st chapter, she seeks wool and flax and works with willing hands, right? She is a builder. She builds homes. Verse 14, she is like the ships of the merchant. She brings her food from far away. She works hard, right? Preparing food and stuff. I wouldn't call Stacy a ship, but it's there. Verse 16, she considers a field and buys it. With the fruit of her hands, she plants a vineyard. Now, why would a mom, you think, plant a vineyard? Yeah, right? Where's Carla Hostetler? Okay, so here's the thing, right? She takes those beautiful grapes and she smashes them and turns them into what? Jelly to make PB&J sandwiches for her kids. Where's your minds at, you people? Even Jesus listened to his mom. Jesus listened to his mom all the time, right? So his first miracle in the Gospel of John, John's biography of Jesus, is at a wedding. You guys know this story, wedding of Cana. So they're at this wedding, big, huge party, lots of people, and when they run out of wine, it's gone. It's like not there. And that's probably pretty embarrassing for the parents of the bride and groom that they ran out of wine at this party. And so Jesus' mom does what a mom does. She gets involved. She's going to solve the problem. So, John chapter 2. When the wine gave out, the mother of Jesus said to him, they have no wine. And Jesus said to her, woman, which I don't know if I'd say that, but woman, what concern is that to you and to me? My hour has not yet come. So mom goes to Jesus and says, fix it. And Jesus is a bit reluctant. He's like, I don't want to. Like, I don't know if he's annoyed or if he's just like, this is not my time yet, or they should have planned better. It's not my problem, but he doesn't want to do it for whatever reason. Now, Mary, at some point, has seen Jesus do spectacular things because she knows he can fix this problem. And she knows how to deal with him. Moms know how to deal with their kids, don't they? They know how to take care of the kids. When you don't want to do the dishes, they know how to take care of that. When you don't want to clean your room, you don't want to take out the trash, you don't want to turn water to wine, she knows how to deal with those kind of problems. So what does Mary do? What moms do? They don't ignore the excuses. So the mom said to the servant, do whatever he tells you. She kind of ignores Jesus' complaints. It's like, just go take care of it. To Jesus, God's son. So Jesus, without a chance to respond, does what his mom says. And I kind of wonder, though, I look at my kids and I'm thinking, when Stacy tells them to do something they don't want to do, like, hey, Luke, go clean the dishes, what happens? Right, then they go do it. Do you think Jesus did that? Fine. Well, he goes and he does it. He makes 153 gallons of wine for this party, it says in the Bible. And not only that, he makes the best wine for the party. He doesn't make like cheap wine. He doesn't like go at it halfway. He makes really good wine and a lot of it for this party. And theologians kind of ask, well, if he didn't want to do it, why does he do it so well? Like, why does he put all this effort into it? And they give all these theological reasons. And to me, it's really pretty simple. He did that because his mom told him to. That's what moms do. Moms know us, and they build great families. And moms, especially like Stacy, for example, they pay attention to the details. Like the stuff that dads miss, moms, they pick up on that stuff, which is pretty incredible, their level of attention. There's a little girl, preschool age, 3.5, and she had broken her arm, and so she was home from school. And so dad was watching her while she was home. And well, she had just gotten a tea set for her birthday and was playing a little tea party with her stuffed animals, that kind of thing with water and stuff. Well, she wants to get dad involved in the tea party, and he's out there watching Netflix. He's out binge watching Netflix, and so she goes out to dad in the living room with a cup of tea. She's like, "Dad, here's some tea for you." He's like, "Okay." He drinks it. "Oh, that is the best tea ever, so good." And he gives it back to her. She goes back, gets another glass, and glass after glass of tea for dad, and just he's like, "Oh, this is the best," and it's so cute. And well, mom comes home. He's like, "Oh, stop. Just wait, just watch this. This is so cute, right?" And here comes little girl toddling out, a little glass of water, and gives it to dad. He's like, "Oh, this is the best tea." And she goes, "Mommy, do you want some tea?" She's like, "No, I'm fine, but thank you. That's so sweet, but I'm really okay." And dad's like, "What's the deal? Like, that's so cute. Like, why are you not taking tea from your daughter? What's wrong with you?" She's like, "Well, it is sweet, and it is super, super cute. However, she's 3.5. What's the only place she can get water from right now? The toilet." Right? So moms kind of know that kind of stuff, the details. Moms know what's best for us. Moms want what's best for us. And they work hard to turn a house into a home, even when we resist and we don't listen. And it shouldn't surprise us, though, that kind of tenacity is a characteristic of God. It's a characteristic of Jesus. When Jesus was coming into Jerusalem for the final time, he is coming on a donkey with these crowds around him on the Mount of Olives. And he sits there on this donkey overlooking the city of Jerusalem. And all those people, all those skeptical religious leaders, all those angry Romans, all those people who in a week's time would call for his execution. He looks at all of that. And he says this in Matthew 23, verse 37. "Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to it. How often have I desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing." That's a very motherly image of a hen just getting her kids together, just trying to protect them, do what's best for them, create a home for them, pull them back together despite how they're behaving, despite their attitudes. He still wants them to be home. That's kind of where we left off last week. We said that Jesus, his most basic commandment to us, his most basic instruction to us is just this: follow me. I want you to be home with me. I want you to be where I'm at. And it's not just a commandment that takes the fun out of life. It's not meant to be restrictive or to hold back our freedom at all. But it's what's best for us, to be home with him, to be where he's at. And folks, he's not standing still. This isn't just, hey, come home and hang out at the house. He's on mission. He's on task. So when he says, follow me, it's like, I want you to do the things that I do, that my household does. I'm not being restrictive or limiting your fun. What I'm looking for is something better for you, something lasting and loving for you, something that is exceptional and eternal for you. That's what he's after when he says, follow me or come home. He's after us, people just like us. And to be clear with that, He's after the real us, not the surface us, not the one that is on the outside that we show everybody else. He's not satisfied with the external stuff. He wants the internal stuff because the superficial stuff isn't lasting, and he knows it and we know it. Years ago, when I was at First Christian Church in Georgia, we took a mission trip to Piedras Negras, Mexico, just south of San Antonio by Eagle Pass, Texas. And we were working on a church there. It was an older church. We were trying to fix it up a little bit, and we had some construction managers there. And what we were doing is we were putting stucco on the interior of the walls. And these were cinder block walls, kind of like we have out here in Arizona. But you could see the cracks between the blocks. And there's some, pretty substantial cracks in the blocks. But we were just kind of covering them over with stucco, just covering it up. And so I asked the question, I'm like, shouldn't we be fixing the block work? I mean, this is just going to crack again. And the construction manager, who was a national in Mexico, said, this is what we call cat's paw. Cat's paw. It's like a touch-up. You're just like a cat just kind of barely touching a wall. We're just touching it up right now. We can't fix it right now, so we'll just kind of make it look nice, make it look better for now, but we know it's not going to last. We know that. Some of us, unfortunately, live cat's paw lives. We create this outside look for everyone else to see when inside the structure is damaged. And it's just going to crack again because we haven't changed who we are on the inside. God knows what's going on under the surface. God's not fooled by the cat's paw construction of our lives. And he's interested in the changes that count. That's what he's after. That's what we've been talking about over the last few weeks. What is your why? How is it you make decisions? Do you care about being right or being righteous in how we live? In fact, in that story I just talked about where Jesus is on the Mount of Olives and about to come into Jerusalem, just before that, just a few verses before that in Matthew's gospel, he is very critical of this kind of cat's paw construction in the lives of some of the leaders of that day. In Matthew 23, verse 23, he says, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites, for you tithe mint, dill, and cumin, and have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice and mercy and faith. It is these you ought to have practiced without neglecting the others." Look, tithing is a good thing, giving 10% of what you have. These guys had it down to a science. They didn't just tithe their money, they tithed everything, even their spice rack. I got some cumin here, I'm going to give 10% to God. Got some, salt here, 10%. I mean, they tithed everything. They were focused on the details, but neglected the big stuff they should have cared about. They were cat's paw. Everybody can see them tithing their mint, but inside, they didn't care about justice or mercy. Verse 25, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you clean the outside of the cup and of the plate, but the inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence. You blind Pharisee, first clean the inside of the cup so that the outside may also become clean." I mean, it's good to have a clean cup, right? You go get a cup of coffee in the morning and you nice clean outside of that cup. It's great. We go take a drink out of it and something floats up to the top from the bottom. That's gross, right? Or you tip the cup back and there's a big black crusty ring around the outside. That's gross because the part of the cup you interact with is the inside. That's the most important part. The outside, not so important, but the inside is. The part that God interacts with us is the inside. That's the part he's super interested in. Jesus wants to deal with that with us. And this didn't just start in Jesus' day or end today. In the early church, this has been a problem for generations and generations. Back towards the back of the New Testament, there's a book called James. It's a letter written by a guy named James. And he is pretty direct with Christians in his day. Pretty harsh even. But not in a way that is to be mean. He's trying to get past that cat's paw construction that they had done in their lives, that we do in our lives. He wants to get past that to help fix the real problems because he wants us to be home. He wants to deal with the inside stuff, not just the outside stuff. And so to do that, he starts with the outside stuff. And one of the most prominent examples he gives is one we all deal with, whether 2,000 years ago or today, and that's what we say. What we say, our tongue, our words. And why does he start there? Well, because we use words a lot. We spend a fifth of our lives talking. A fifth. 11 million words per year we speak. And that's average. I look around this room and I see some above average people. How many of you know an above average person? Raise your hand. Come on, raise your hand. Okay, keep it up if you're sitting next to that person. All right. See, we have those people that speak a lot and talk a lot. But here's the thing about our words. They're also the inside expression of how we feel. Words are incredible. The Greeks really valued words. They had this word, logos, you've probably seen this word before, that means word in Greek. But it meant more than that. It meant wisdom, it meant philosophy, it meant word. It was this big, huge word because they were amazed, as should we be, with words. Because think about what words do. They take what's in here, what no one else can see or know, and make that stuff in here present, real, embodied in the physical world. It's incredible. It takes what's in here, our thoughts, emotions, ideas, who we are inside, and somehow it makes it present and accessible in the world around us. And so they were amazed by words because our ideas can now express a reality. So James talks about that. In chapter 3, he says this: with the tongue, with our words, we bless the Lord and Father, and with words we curse those who are made in the likeness of God. From the same mouth come blessings and cursing. My brothers and sisters, this ought not to be so. Does a spring pour forth from the same opening both fresh and salt water? Can a fig tree, my brothers and sisters, yield olives, or a grapevine figs? No more than salt water can yield fresh. He says, look, these words you're speaking are showing what's going on inside of you. So what is the inside of you? Right? He wants to get past the cat's paw part to who you are on the inside. Where are those words coming from? Because they matter. Charles Wesley was an English preacher in the 1700s, and he's kind of known with his brother for starting the Methodist Church. Well, one day he was giving a sermon, and after church, he's out at the door greeting people as they leave, and a woman walked up to me. He had this tie on, like you see here in this photo, or this painting, I guess. And he goes outside, and a woman comes up to him, and she says, "Brother Wesley, are you open to some criticism?" Which, by the way, every minister loves to hear after church on a Sunday. Kind of something I got to tell you about, And so he's like, well, okay, yeah, sure. What do you want to criticize? So she says, the ribbons on your tie are entirely too long for a man of God. She pulls up a pair of scissors and she cuts them off. You're like, whoa, like what just happened, right? They're like kind of stunned. He says, okay. He says, thank you. Now may I borrow your scissors for a moment? So she says, sure. And he says to her, are you open to some criticism? She says, yes, I am. He's like, all right, stick out your tongue. It's awesome. But the problem is, it's not going to solve the problem, right? Cutting off her tongue isn't going to solve the problem, no more than cutting off his tie. Because what's really going on is the attitude going on underneath. If hateful or cutting words are coming out of our mouths, it's revealing what's going on inside of our hearts, inside of our heads. And in fact, if we try to control the tongue to solve the problem, that's just cat's paw. That's just cat's paw. That's just covering up the problem. We have to have the courage and to do the work of dealing with what we think, what's going on in our hearts, how we choose to see the world. That level of commitment. Otherwise, we're just dealing with the cat's paw. Jesus said it like this in Matthew 12. Either make a tree good and its fruit good, or make the tree bad and its fruit bad. For the tree is known by its fruit. You brood of vipers, how can you speak good things when you are evil? For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. The good person brings good things out of a good treasure, and the evil person brings evil things out of an evil treasure. I tell you, on the day of judgment, you will have to give account for every careless word you utter. For by your words you'll be justified, and by your words you'll be condemned. That's harsh stuff. That's harsh stuff. Because our words matter. Because our words aren't just a personal thing, right? Like I said, they go from here out our mouth and they affect people around us. It affects parents, it affects children, it affects friends and family, co-workers and community. Our words affect the world. Go back to James for a second. He expands, he says, these conflicts and these disputes among you, where do they come from? Do they not come from your cravings that are at war within you? You want something and you do not have it, so you commit a murder. You covet something, you cannot obtain it, so you engage in disputes and conflicts. He's saying, look, the stuff inside of you is coming out and it affects your relationships. And so we need to be asking ourselves, if we're going to build a life and build a legacy, what's going on in my heart? What's going on in my mind? Because our spirit affects the world around us. And by the way, I know these are harsh texts, I get that, but James and Jesus, they're not trying to be harsh or restrictive or mean or any of those kind of things. Jesus says, I want you to be home. I want to gather you together. I want what's best for you. James says this a couple verses later. God yearns jealously for the Spirit that is made to dwell in us. Jealously. He really, really wants us with him and wants us home. And these are the things that bring us there. That's the purpose of all of this. Jesus is looking out on the Mount of Olives, sees all those people there. People are going to eventually want him dead. And he still says, I want you home. I want to gather you together and make a home with you. That's who God is. One of my favorite paintings, it hangs out just outside of my office, is this one. I don't know what that background is. Sorry about that. Is this one right here. The Prodigal Son. It's made by Rembrandt. And in this, we have this painting of a very, very popular story that you all are probably familiar with, the Prodigal Son. Now, if you don't know the story, the Prodigal Son is a story. In fact, I should back up. It really is not about the prodigal son. Okay, so in the story, this son leaves home and comes back, and we call him the prodigal son. But if you think about it, there weren't a lot of prodigal sons reading this story or hearing it from Jesus because they were still out doing wild things. So this is a story about somebody else that relates to you and me. This story begins with a man who has two sons, and one of the sons, the younger son, kind of says, you know what, I'm kind of done. I care more about my money after you die than you when you're alive. That's harsh. And so his dad says, fine. He gives him his money, and he leaves home. He goes out, and you know the story, he wastes all of his money on wild living, just wastes every bit of it. Then there comes a famine. He has no money, can't get a job, looking around, he's hungry. Finally gets a job feeding pigs, which is like the worst thing for a Jewish man to do. But he's got to do that. He's feeding pigs, and eventually he kind of comes to his senses, it says. He repents, and he's sorry. He goes, I'm going to go back home to my dad. I'm going to say, Dad, you know what? I'm not your son. I get that. I'll be just a slave. But I want to be with the home because you'll take care of me. So he goes back home. Before he gets there, his dad sees him coming. This wretched, ragtag, stinky, smelly guy. And his dad comes and he hugs him and he welcomes him home. And that's what this painting is kind of taking place. You got the dad hugging the son, and he's, his shoes are all messed up and he's just kind of dirty and messy. And that's this story. But there's someone else that I think the story's written to when the readers read this or heard this story. And that's this guy over here. Who's this? His brother. the older son, right? Still wearing the robe like the dad, still nice and clean, still, taking care. Now, in the story Jesus tells, the older son isn't there. He's out in the fields, and he's coming home, and he hears the party, and they say, hey, your brother's back. And he's like, really? My brother's back? No thanks. I mean, he left, took half our money. I had to do all extra work. I'm left here by myself. This is ridiculous. He embarrassed the family. He embarrassed my dad. He embarrassed me. I'm not going in. This is no way. Not happening. And so when Rembrandt paints this, he kind of puts the older son right here, so you get him in the painting. But he's kind of away. He's not in this lit area. He's kind of off to the side. Kind of like, I'm not getting involved in that hug. Not me. Not happening. And what the painting kind of deals with, what the story deals with, is the heart of the older son, the heart of the brother. Because the dad goes out and finds the son sitting on the porch, not wanting to go in, and he says, son, you got to come home. I want to gather you together too. You want to come inside? He's like, no, I don't want to. He's embarrassed me. He's embarrassed you. He's embarrassed all of us. Wasted our money. I'm done. And his dad said, look, son, our relationship's solid. Nothing's changed between you and me. We're together still. All that I have is yours. You're still my son. The farm is yours. But you need to come inside. You need to come inside. Because your brother, who was dead, is alive again, was lost and he's found. You got to come inside. And guess what? The story ends right there. Here. What Rembrandt painted is what the story ends with. We don't know, does he come in, does he hug, does he not, what happens? And the story's open-ended because the story is about us. We're this guy. Because he says, come home. I want to build a family with you. I want to build a home with you. I want to gather you together like a hen gathers her chicks. I want you to be with me. But my mission, Jesus says, is for the prodigals too. How do you feel about the prodigals? How do you feel about them? Because I'm on mission, and I want you to join me on that mission. So we have to ask ourselves here, what's our relationship with God about? How deep does it go? If we look at our hearts, are we just cat's paw Christians? Are we ones that want to join him on his mission of taking care of prodigals too? Of taking care of the world, to change who we are to better fit what he wants us to be? Or are we going to sit on the porch, refuse to go in, refuse to take care of prodigals, refuse to change our hearts, and just sit there and kind of pout? He wants us to build something lasting with our lives. That's why we're here. We're here to build. Not to sit back and say, God, you know what? That's broken. You need to do something about that. God, you need to fix that. And God says, yeah, I did. I sent you to fix it. Because you're part of my family. You're part of my household. So get busy with the work I've given you to do. Build something great. It's not just saying, God, you fix it. Because God will always say to us, that's why I sent you. Let's pray together.